local variables, right? I think I'll yesterday what I was trying to tell you guys is I wanted you guys to have a vision of how global and local variables work, but I did not have anything to draw on, so I have a picture today that I'll share with you guys, and maybe you'll get a better intuition. You'll see how global and local variables are used in the code. And lastly, we saw arithmetic operators. So I think mostly the arithmetic operators we already had gone through. It was basic addition, multiplication, subtraction. Yesterday we saw three more this arithmetic operators, which was the power of a number, modulus of a number. Modulus is the remainder of division of two numbers, and the integer division, which is basically the quotient when we divide two integers. So anyone has any question from yesterday's session? Maybe you went through whatever was taught and you did not understand anything. Okay, let me just start sharing my screen. Yeah, so I'll just quickly give you guys an interpretation of what I was trying to say about global and local variables. We'll first go through the code and then we'll see the diagram, then we'll understand it better. Yeah. So I think yesterday we saw this. Today I'm just recapping it for you guys. So, so here we have one variable s that is declared in a global scope. Now I hope you guys till now you would have understood that this s variable is a global variable and all these na1, na2, ns1, ns2 are local variables, right? Is there anyone who wants to repeat it for the class for everyone else? What is global and what is local variable? We have been talking about it a lot, but I just wanted you guys to get it very well, get the concept very well. So if anyone wants to tell the whole class about what is global, what is their understanding of global and local variables, so they can. Okay. Okay. So this S right now here, right, is the global variable. And here we have defined three functions, right? We have defined a get mode function, which is just printing this S variable, which is this S global variable. It is just printing it. And then we have the two functions, one for addition and one for subtraction. So in addition function, we are declaring two variables. These two are the local variables. Why are they local? Because they are declared inside a function, inside they cannot be used outside this add nums function, right? It can be only be used inside this add num function. That's why they are called as local variables. So we have two local variables in add nums function and we have two local variables in sub nums function. Okay. So as we talked yesterday that since these na1, na2, ns1 and ns2 variables are local, they cannot be used outside of the function, but any global variable like s over here can be used anywhere in the code. Okay, so I'll just give you a diagrammatic visual of how this is. Yeah. So here you see, right, this whole gray area, this big box that I was talking about yesterday, this gray box, right, is your code, is your variable scope.py, the whole file, the code that is present in your file. Okay, now you have three functions in your file. These three functions are here shown by the blue boxes. You can see three blue boxes here, right? So these three blue boxes are the three functions that are present inside this variable scope.py this file. Okay, so now when I'm declaring a global variable which is s in this code, like if you see here, this s is a global variable, right? Because it is outside of all the three functions, right? So here it is present inside the variable scope.py file, but it is outside of all the three blue boxes because it is outside of all the functions. It is in the code, but outside of all the functions. Okay, so this is a global variable. You can see here because it is not a part of any of the blue boxes. The blue boxes are nothing but functions. Okay, so that is why it's a global variable. Now here you see there is one blue box for add nums function, this one, and it has two local variables, na1 and na2. Why are they local variables again? Because they are inside a function, because this blue box is a function, right? So this na1 and na2 are local variables present inside the function add nums. Similarly here ns1 and ns2 are local variables present inside the subnums blue box, subnums function. So when we want to use a variable, so here you can see the arrows, right? So now here we have only three functions, but if we had like five functions also, all the five functions would be able to use this s variable because it is not inside any blue box. It is outside. So it's this s variable is inside this gray box, right? And all the three functions are present inside this gray box only. So all the three functions will be able to access this s variable. But you cannot say the same about these local variables because the local variables are inside the blue box, right? So they can only be accessed inside the blue box. So if you think of it this way, anything that is present inside a box can only be accessed from inside that box. Like if you see this s variable is present inside the gray box. So it can be accessed anywhere from anywhere inside this gray box. And since the blue box, that is the functions are present inside the gray box, you can access it from there. Okay. So once more, this blue box, this bigger blue rectangle is the variable scope.py, your code, the whole code that you have. Okay. In your code, you have three functions which are represented here by these three blue boxes, which are the three functions that you have in your code. Now you have one global variable because it is not a part of any of the function. It is just present in the code, but it is not a part of any of the blue boxes. Okay, so that's why it can be accessed by all the functions in the code. But you cannot, that is not the case with the variables inside this blue boxes. This the na1 and na2 variables are present inside addnums blue box, right? So you can only access it from inside this blue box. You cannot access it from anywhere else. No, you cannot use na1 and na2 from anyone else. So that's why they are called as global local variables. So is this clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now,
No, ma'am.
now can I,
I didn't
yeah,
understand
yeah.
anything.
Okay,
I
okay.
didn't understand anything.
Okay, I'll tell you again. Fine. Okay. Were you present in yesterday's lecture?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, fine. So, see, now you know what a function is, right? We talked about it yesterday, right? It is just a small code block to perform one small task, right? So here we have three functions. Okay. Do you have any questions about function? What is a function?
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. So you did not understand what is a function also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. See. So when you are writing code, right, in a file, you want to do many things in a file. Like you want to add also, you want to subtract also. But like when it's a good practice to put all the code in one place. So whenever I want to add two numbers, I can directly call this add nums function. This is called a function. Okay, what is a normal function? Function is something that does a task for you, right? That does something for you. So if you want to add two numbers, you will write a small function for it. If you want to subtract two numbers, you will write a function for it. Okay, it's like I think in mathematics also you guys would have learnt about functions. I hope you guys have learnt about functions in mathematics also, right? So what is a function?
Yes.
Basically, a function is something that will take an input and give you an output for it. Okay, that's what you call function. F of x is equal to y, right? In mathematics, you guys would have learned it. F of x is equal to y. right? So
Okay,
here
okay.
similarly whenever a function you are writing, right, that function will do something for you. So here you could have passed some input to the function, but right now we are not passing any input to this function. Okay, so this add nums is a function basically which is f of something, which will give you an output which is y. Okay, so this is, you can think of it as f of x is equal to y, but you are not providing an input at the moment. At the moment you are just hard coding inside the function, you're just putting these values 10, na is equal to 10 and na2 is equal to 15. So you can take these values also, that will also be fine. Like you can take a and b as values and then put here a, assign these values to the function, right? So now when I'm calling this function add nums, right, I'll just put in 10 and 15. So now this is exactly like f of x is equal to y for you all, right? So x is what you're passing, which is 10 and 15, and this would be f, the function, right? And it will give you some output, right, which would be your y. So this is the mathematical way of thinking about it. Function is in a more intuitive sense, function is nothing but it does a small task for you. So this is an addition function, as you can see, right? Because it adds two numbers and prints the output. So that is only its task, that it will add two numbers and print the output. So when I want to add two numbers, when I want to add 10 and 15, I don't have to write this code everywhere. I'll just call this add nums function, and whatever is there inside this function will get executed. Okay, so and yesterday we also talked about how to write a function. So basically it is a code block, right? We were talking about code block, and function is an example of code block basically. So now when you want to write a function, then all the code that you want to put into a function, right, you will give it one level indentation more than the defining line. So what that means is this line is where you are declaring the function, right? This def add nums, this is you're defining that function, this is the start of your function, this is where you're giving the name to your function, which is add nums, right? So this is at indentation level 0. Now what is indentation level? It is nothing but space level. Like from this line, if you check this left side, there is a line, right? From here, if you check, this def add nums is closer to the line, and all the three sentences, all the three code lines below it are a little spaced from the line. So this space which is present between the line and the code, the where it starts, right, the code wherever it starts, that is called indentation. Okay, so this will be, since it's closer to the line, it will be at 0 level indentation. And since this line is a little spaced from the left side line, it is at level 1
Ma'am,
indentation. Yeah, go ahead. You
yeah,
have any
ma'am,
question?
can you explain the indentation?
What? Can you repeat again? I was not able to hear you.
Can you repeat again the indentation?
Yeah, yeah. So now you understood at least what a function is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So whenever we are, yeah, so indentation is nothing but spaces. Okay, so now here you can see this def add nums line, it is closer to the left side line, right? This left side margin line you can see on left side. So this first def add nums line is closer to that margin line, right? And all the three code lines that are present on line number 8, 9 and 10 are a little spaced out from that margin line. So this spacing from the margin line is called as indentation. Okay, the space, whatever space you give from the start of the line is called the indentation. So if you don't give a space between the line and the code, like here you can see there is no space. If I go backspace, it will like go to line number 6, which means there is no space between the start of the line and wherever I have started writing the code. This def is like at the start of the line itself, right? So that's why it is at level 0 indentation. Okay, again the space from the margin or the space from the start of the your whatever your file is, the left side of your file basically, that is called the indentation. So here from the margin line you don't have any space between your code and the margin line, so that's why this line number 7 is present at level 0 indentation. But here if you see, there is some space present, right? this space is present between the margin line and the code. So that's why this line number 8 is present at level 1 indentation, which is one level ahead of level 0. That is one space more than level 0 indentation. Okay, did you get what indentation means? It is just a space from the margin or from the start of your file, so the left side of your file. So yeah, yesterday we talked that this indentation is very important while writing code blocks in Python. Code blocks as in while writing a function or while writing any loop. How will the Python like compiler understand that that some lines are present inside a function? How will the Python compiler understand that line number 8, 9, and 10 are a part of this def add nums function? That is, it will understand it only if you provide this indentation spaces. Okay, is this clear to you?
Yes.
Okay, indentation is clear to you, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, fine. So now that you know what a function is, what we were talking about a variable, right? So there are two types of variable. There can be a global variable and a local variable. So any variable that is defined inside a function is called a local variable, and any variable that is defined outside all the functions is called a global variable. So in this case, can you guess what is this S variable? Is it a global or local variable?
Global,
Okay, okay. Why is it global?
because it is the outside from the function.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So this S is outside of all the functions, right? So that's why it's a global variable. And this global variable can be accessed in all the functions. But if there is any local variable present inside a function, then that local variable can only be used inside that function and nowhere else. Okay, so for that only I was trying to explain the same using this diagram here. So here, as I said, right, this whole gray box is the variable scope.py file, and this blue color rectangular boxes are the functions that you define in your file. So all of this is present inside your py file code only. But as you can see, there are some variables that are present inside the blue boxes, which is basically inside the functions. And this S variable is present outside all the blue boxes. That is basically a global variable which can be accessed from anywhere. So I hope this is clear to all of you. So should we move to the next topic?
Sure.
Okay, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
great. So next we'll talk about comments in Python. Okay. So why is comments even required? Like it has nothing to do with the logic of the code. Basically, when you run a code, your comments will not be considered by the compiler. So why to do that then? Let's see. Why to write comments? Okay, so this is a simple function that I have written to calculate simple interest of a specified principal amount with a given time duration and rate of interest. Now, I hope you all know what is simple interest. Like simple interest is basically whenever you are taking an amount from the bank as a loan and you want to pay some interest on it. Now, let's not go into the detail of it. But I'll tell you why are comments required here. So now see, for someone who does not know what simple interest is, like if you go through the code line by line, okay, that person will get confused at this line, right? Line number 11. Like before that, I'm just taking the input. I'm taking principal amount, I'm taking time period, I'm taking rate of interest. Fine. Then I'm printing all those three variables that I'm getting from the user. Then when someone reads this code and comes at line number 11 and that person does not know what simple interest is, then that person would be like, what is this line number 11? Why is it even required? Right? So you as the coder, if you're writing a code, you want to make it easier for others to read it as well. Okay, because if you're working in a company, suppose if you worked in a one company and you wrote some code, okay, now you thought, okay, I'll switch company and go to some other company. Then the code that you have written in the first company, someone else would be working on it, right? So you need to make sure that your code can also be read very well by others. Okay, it should be interpretable, like you should make it more as much readable as possible, so that even if someone does not know anything about your code or whatever you're writing, that person should be able to understand what is the logic you have used in the code. So that's why we use comments. Comments are nothing but they tell us more about the code. Like you can use comments in your code to make it more readable for others. So here, as you can see, this is a comment that I have used: formula for calculating simple interest. So if someone does not know what this line is, now they know, okay, fine, this is a formula for calculating simple interest and my function was to calculate simple interest. So I don't know what simple interest is, but okay, fine. Now I understand this is the formula for calculating simple interest. Just a minute. Yeah, so see, this is the comment that I have given. Okay, so the comments are used to give more idea about your code, more information to the other person who might be reading your code, or for yourself only. Like if you are writing a code and then you come back to it after 10 days, now you won't have it in your mind, okay, what was I thinking 10 days back when I was writing this code, right? So it's always better to write comments in the code so that even you remember, okay, this is what I was doing and maybe I should start working on this now. So this is one way. So when I run this file, right, the comments will get ignored totally. Like this first comment, this is called a single line comment. Like if I type this hash, okay, in front of any line, that will become a single line comment. Like even here, if I type a hash, this line just became commented out. So commenting out the line will not print that line. So here in this case, this line won't get executed and I won't get the rate of interest printed. Okay, and this is called a single line comment because it is applicable only for the line that has the hash character. Wherever, so here also in line number 11, if you see after the hash character, whatever I have written has got commented out. Like the compiler won't consider that. The compiler won't try to run this code, whatever you are writing after the hash character in that one line. Okay, so this is only valid for one line. Like even this print rate of interest, right? Line number 11. Sorry, line number 9. If I go to the next line and type print, it won't be commented out. This line number 10 is not commented out. Only the line that you have applied hash to has got commented out. So this is single line comment. But if you want to write a big comment, okay, some very big comment which is going to take more than one line, then you can use the multi-line comment. This from line number 14 to line number 17 is the multi-line comment. What it says is, yeah, what it says is print the below line only if output is not being printed where function is called, which is basically it is telling the user or whoever is going to use this code, write the further of this code, that you print this line number 18, you use this line number 18 only if simple interest is not getting printed anywhere else. If simple interest is printed outside the function somewhere, then don't use this line. Okay, so this is a multi-level, multi-line comment because it is taking two lines, right? So instead of, I can use hash also, like I can remove this and put hash on two lines. Okay, because this is just two lines, you can put hash as many number of times as you want. But if you have like a 15 line comment or something, then in that case it will be very like it will take more efforts to put that hash in front of all the 15 lines, right? So how do you put the multi-line comments? You just put this double quotes thrice, and everything after that will get commented. If you want to stop the comment section, you again put a double quote thrice. So this would be a multi-line comment. So right now you just have to know these two comments. One is a single line comment and one is multi-line comment. Any doubt in comments?
Multi-line comments.
You did not understand what multi-line comments is?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, so single line you understood, right? Whenever we want to give more information about the code, we use a single line comment. Okay, we use a single line comment if our comment is a small one. Like if our comment is going to fit in one line, then we use a single line comment. Okay, if you have a very big comment which is going to take about 10 lines, okay, then see, for single line comment, right, in Python, if you want to comment, you have to put this hash character on the line that you want to comment out. Okay, so now if you have a 15 line comment, you will have to put this hash character at the start of all the 15 lines. Okay, is this clear to you? If you are writing one line of comment, you are going to put a hash character at the start of the line or at the start of the comment, wherever your comment is starting. Here on line number 12, your comment is starting from formula on. Like this SI will get printed, and after that it will encounter hash character, and compiler will not see whatever is written after that. So only till whatever is present before hash character will get executed. After that, nothing will get executed. So similarly, if you here it is being shown as double line actually, but this is a single line comment only. Yeah, so whenever you want to comment out one line, you use a hash character. But if your comment is very big, like if your comment is some 15 lines big, then you can ideally you can put a hash character for all the 15 lines that your comment is occupying. Okay, but it will be easier, right, to use multi-line comments, because here you don't have to put a hash character at the start of every line. You just have to put a double quotes. Sorry. Yeah. So you just have to put a double quotes and a double, this is a double quote start and a double quote end. And whatever comment you want to write, you can write it in between. You can write any number of lines in between, and you don't have to worry about the hash character. So your effort is getting saved. Like if you would have used a hash character, then for every line that you write, for every line that you write, you will have to put a hash character at the start. This is a comment. Continuing on this line. So see, if you are using hash character for commenting out, then you will have to put it on all the lines, however, how many ever lines your comment is occupying. But if you're using multi-level, multi-line commenting, in this case, you just have to put an opening quotes and ending quotes, and whatever your comment is, you can directly put inside this. So you don't have to worry about a hash character in this case. I can directly type it without any hash character. Now is it clear what is the difference between multi-line comment and a single line comment?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between multi-line comment and single line comment? Anyone?
Ma'am, can I tell you?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Single line comment is that when we comment something, yeah, we written something in, we should use a hash code.
Okay.
In multi comment, we should use a line code to double line code. So at the front, at the starting and the end, without using a hash code, we can write lots of comments.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Right. Great. Anyone else who wants to tell? Fine. So here you can see a similar example. So here single line comment, you can use it in two ways. You can either comment it, like you can use actually after the hash character, whatever you write, that will get escaped, that won't be compiled by the compiler. Or if you want to comment out the whole line, even that is possible. And this is multi-level, multi-line comments. So here you can see, right, this in this case, in the second case, the this three lines of comment are given, but all the three lines require a hash character. But in this case, in the above case, the hash character is not required. Only three double quotes to start and three double quotes to end is required. That's it. So that is the benefit of using multi-line comments. So let's go ahead. So, okay, so next we'll talk a little about data types. So, I think integer data type, all of you now know what is an integer data type, right? We'll talk about integer and float data type first. So integers are nothing but positive and negative whole numbers. Like, I think this is basic mathematical knowledge. Integers means anything which has either a negative sign or a positive sign, but that is a whole number. Like it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it's a whole number. It's not a decimal. Okay, that is considered as Python integer. So what is basically data type? First of all, data type is basically whenever you're assigning a value to the variable, right? Now you know how to create variables in Python, right? So whenever you are assigning a variable, assigning a value to a variable, that value will be of certain types basically. Okay, so that variable that you're creating and the value that you're putting into that variable will have certain types. So now that it can be an integer, it can be a decimal number, it can be like a word, like a English sentence. So all these different types of options you have while assigning a variable any value, right? So these types that you can assign to a variable are called the data types. Okay, because the value that you're putting into the variable is a data, right? It's a data, it's a small data that you're putting into the variable. So if you're giving num is equal to 10, so 10 is the data that you're putting inside this num variable, right? So this 10 data will have a certain type. In this case, 10 is an integer. So similarly, you can put lot of values inside a variable. You can put an integer, you can put a decimal number, you can put an English alphabet, you can put an English word. So all these things we'll see, and they are called as data types.
Ma'am, can you explain these definition of their words like
Of
boolean,
yeah,
sequence
yeah,
type?
yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. So we are going one by one, right? So all this dictionary, Boolean and all, don't see it right now. We'll go through it one by one. So right now, all we have to see is numeric data type. We are seeing the numeric data type right now. So you know what an integer is, right? Now, what is a float? Float is nothing but a decimal number. Anything that has a decimal point is a float. Okay, and I think complex numbers are not actually used, but if you have learned it in mathematics, complex numbers have a real part and an imaginary part, right? All this that is not actually very useful, but maybe in complex mathematics it will be useful. But you can assign a complex number to a variable also, that you can try on your own. But since it's not very useful, I am not going to talk about it, since I'm not sure how many of you know complex numbers, so it will be a little confusing. So we'll talk about float right now. Okay, integers, so all we know. Float is anything that has a a decimal point attached to it. So you can see they represent real numbers. So integers represent positive and negative whole numbers, and float represent real numbers, which has a decimal point, and they have an integer and fractional part. Okay, now since there are so many data types, okay, you can actually check the data type of a variable using this type method, type function. Let's see that once. Okay, so if I take, so by the way, initially we had taken input from the user using this code, right? Int, because we wanted to take the integer input. Okay, similarly, you can, if you want to take a decimal input, you can use float also. Float input.
Ma'am, what is VAL? VAL2.
VAL is the name of the variable. So whenever you are taking any input from the user, or whenever you are assigning any, if you want to take any value, okay, basically you will put it into a variable, right? So if I have to take the input from the user in this case, I will have to save that input at some place, right? And I will have to be like, I'll have to know what that place is, so that if I want to access that variable later on, I can, using the variable name. So here I'm taking an input from the user and putting it into val variable. Val is nothing but a name to the variable that I'm creating. So that if later on, if I want to print it, for example, Okay, I want to print the input that I have taken from the user. I can directly use the variable name and print that input. So you're taking it, you're putting it into this val variable. Val is the name of the variable that you're creating, and the value would be the one taken from the user. Is this clear?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, so we saw that if we want to take an integer input from the user, then we use int here, like in like we put this input function inside the int function. Okay, so give input. Yeah, similarly, if you want to get a decimal number from the user, then you have to put this float before the input function. Yeah. So now if I print both of them, print val2. Okay. So first one is an input, is an integer. So I'll just put 2. And second one is second one is a float, is a decimal. Float is nothing but a decimal. So I'll put 2.3. Okay, so now I'm printing it. I'm seeing the second one is printed as a decimal number. First one is printed as an integer. Even if you try giving a, like now in the first variable, it expects an integer, right? In this case, if I give a decimal number, it will throw an error because it is expecting an integer here. Okay, so you'll have to understand what is the type of input that the user will is going to give you, and then you have to structure it in that way. So yeah, we're talking about type, right? So what this type function does is it will give you the data type of the variable that you pass inside it. Okay, so here in this case, it will give me the data type of val variable, and similarly in this case, it will give me the data type of val2 variable. Can anyone tell me what will be the output of line number 8 and line number 9? It will be the data type. Can anyone tell me what will be the output of line number 8 and 9?
Line number 8 is integer and line
Mm-hmm.
number 9 is float number.
Right, great. Yeah. So I'll just run this and see what happens. Yeah, see, so you can see int and float. This class for now you ignore it. It's just a type. So like we'll talk about it later. Right now, just look into whatever type that is giving, the compiler is giving you. So the first one is int and the second one is float, right? Okay. So, okay. So this is about integers and floats. And then there is this data type called Boolean. Okay, here you can see Boolean. Okay. So now what is Boolean? Okay, okay, so we can think of Boolean as true or false. Okay, so now as we know, integers, like every data type has a range. Okay, integers can only take like negative whole numbers or positive whole numbers, as we saw. Float numbers can only take real numbers, right? Float, what if you want to assign a float value to a variable, that should only be a real number. So similarly, if you want to assign a Boolean value to a variable, that value can only be val. So again, this val underscore b is a variable name I'm assigning. So Booleans can only have two value, either true or we'll just put it as val t and val f. Can you guess what this would be? Anyone?
False.
Yeah, great. So Boolean can only have two value, true or false. Okay. So again, so this is just the range of Boolean. We call it as Boolean, true and false. We have just named true and false values as Boolean. Okay, and this is case sensitive. So you cannot write f is equal to true. This line number 13 will give you an error because true and false values are case sensitive. You have to keep T as capital and F as capital in case of false. Okay, so this is called a boolean. Okay, so we'll see operations now. I think arithmetic operations are already completed, so I'll move ahead. So next is relational operators. So for the relational operators, for you to understand relational operators, I wanted to explain you what a boolean and what a boolean value is basically. Okay, so let's just go and open. So these are the same, like this relational operators you would have performed in your mathematics class as well. So here also, okay, whenever I try to get the type of val1, I'm going to get a bool, sorry. Let me just try that once. Print type of val t. So this will give you the value of bool. This will show you that it's a bool. It's a boolean. Boolean is basically boolean or bool you can call in Python. So it's of the type bool. See it is showing you. So okay. So yeah, so there is this relational operators. You have greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. So I think you all must be familiar with greater than sign, right? In mathematics we use, right? 10 is greater than 3, right? So what here it means is, now see, now if I try to find out, if I give a variable, just a minute. This. Yeah. So now if I assign this variable 10 is greater than 3, what do you think will be the value inside val? What is it that you, okay, first tell me what is 10 is greater than 3? Is it a true statement or is it a false statement? Do you agree that 10 is greater than 3?
True, ma'am.
Yeah, it's true, right?
Yes.
So yeah. So 10 is greater than 3 is true.
You write in the number line 3.
Sorry, can you repeat
Why are
again your
you
question?
writing directly on the number line 3?
You can write it anywhere. You can write it even at line number 6. It's fine. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to write on line number 1 only. You can give as many spaces as you want and write. That would be fine. That is no issue with that.
Okay.
Okay. So in this case, I think all of you agree that 10 is greater than 3, right? So 10 is greater than 3 is a true statement, right? So this 10 is greater than 3 evaluates to value true, right? So whenever you're using a relational operator, right, you get an answer in Boolean. You get an either a true answer or a false answer. So if I had used 10 plus 3, I would have got the answer in integer, right? If I put 10.5 plus 6.5, 6.6 maybe, then the answer that I'm going to get would be in float. Similarly, when I use any relational operator like greater than or less than or equal to or not equal to, I will get the answer in a Boolean. Okay, is this clear to all of you?
Yeah, ma'am.
Right. So now when I try to print this val, it will show me true. See, it's showing me true. So this is how relational operators are used. Basically, when you want to check whether any statement is true or false, whether if you're comparing two numbers basically, or comparing two statements, even in that case, you can use this. So see here, num1 is 10, num2 is 5, and I have used all the relational operators. You can guess the value. It's very simple. So first is this variable GTR, which will store num1 greater than num2. Okay, now can anyone tell me what will be the answer of GTR? What Boolean value will be stored in GTR?
True.
True, right. LTR?
True,
Okay,
ma'am.
yeah, great. Yeah, in LTR? Yeah,
False.
right. So since this is 10 is not less than 5, right? 10 is greater than 5. 10 is not less than 5. So when you write 10 is less than 5, that will be a false statement. That won't be a true statement. So this LTR would value of LTR would be false in this case. Now this line number 12 is equal to, right? So in anyone has any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So here in Python, if you want to check if one number is equal to another number, or if one statement is equal to another statement, or if one word is equal to another word, you use equal to equal to. You use equal to twice to check like if the first value is equal to the second value or not. So here also equal to, right? This equal to sign can be used in two ways. One would be assigning value. Like here, if you see line number 7, num1 is equal to 10. So I have used equal to sign here to assign the value 10 to the variable num1. That is the first function of equal to. The second function is to check if the first value and second value are equal or not. But for that, you will have to use twice. You will have to use equal to sign twice. Okay, so this line number 12 checks if num1 is equal to the value of num1 is equal to value of num2 or not, which won't be the case here. In this case,
Ma'am,
10
your
is not.
voice is breaking.
Okay, is everyone facing the same issue?
Ma'am, your voice are breaking.
Okay, okay. Is my voice breaking? Should I join again?
No, now it is clear.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so as we were saying, equal to sign has two functions in Python. You can use equal to sign in two ways in Python. One would be to assign a value. So as you can see, line number 7 and line number 8. If you see line number 7, I have used equal to sign to assign the value of 10 to num1 variable. I want to put this 10 value in this num1 variable, right? So that's why I've used a equal to sign. That is the first use case of equal to. That is how you use equal to in Python. And the second way you use it is this line number 12, where I have put two equal to signs in between two numbers. This is just to check if the value of the two numbers is same or not. So in this case, in line number 12, equal to will check if num1 variable has the same value as num2 variable or not. So in this case, 10 is not equal to 5, right? 10 is not equal to 5, as you can see here. So the answer in EQ will be false. Is this clear for everyone? Equal to. What is the difference between equal to and equal to equal to?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, cool. And this now line number 12 was checking if the values in two this variables are same or not. You can also check if the values in two variables are not same. In that case, you can like use line number 13. You can use this relational operator, not equal to. Not is nothing but this exclamation mark. Wherever exclamation mark is present, that is a not. You can consider it as a not. So in this case, num1 is not equal to num2. Okay, which is true, right? 10 is not equal to 5. So that's why the answer in any Q would be true. So similarly, there's greater than equal to and less than equal to. So in mathematics, right, we use greater than equal to in a different way. But here you have to use greater than followed by an equal to sign. As you can see in 14, line number 14, greater than equal to. Okay. So, and similarly, less than equal to. So, is relational operators clear for you all? So, can anyone tell me like what will be the output of all these six variables here, the six relational operators that we have used, and what will be the answer for all of the six lines from line number 10 to line number 15? If you have any questions, you can ask. If you did not understand any relational operator, this is called a relational operator because it gives you a relation between two values, right? So that's why it's called a relational operator. Relational or comparison operator, you can also call it, because it compares the value of two numbers. Anyone who wants to tell me what would be the output of this? Line number 10 to line number 15, what all the values would be, like basically what will be the output of the relational operator? It's pretty easy, you guys.
For line 10, it's true, and for
Okay.
line 11, it's false, and
Yeah,
for line 12, it's false.
yeah,
For line 13, it's true, and
yeah.
for line 14 and 15, it's false.
Line 14, why would it be false? Is line 14
They are
is,
not equal actually. That should be greater or than. Oh, sorry. Line 14 must be true,
yeah,
and
right.
line 15 false. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, great. Yeah, that's right. All the answers were right. So let's just execute this and check. So I was typing the this type of that variable at the start. So it is giving as bool, and then it is giving the answer to all the relational operators that we perform. So I hope this is clear to all of you. If you have any questions till now, you can ask either in relational operators or comments or variables, whatever we saw till
Why
now.
this is 10 is greater than or equal to 5 is true.
That is because 10 is so when greater than equal to operator is used, right? So the first number can either be greater than or equal to the second number. Like if I put both these numbers as 10, just a second. If I put both these numbers as 10, in this case, 10 is not greater than 10, right? 10 is equal to 10, right? So in this case, this first line will be false. 10 is greater than 10 will be false, but 10 is greater than equal to 10 will be true. Okay, because it checks if the first number is either greater than or equal to the second number. So in the earlier case, when we had 5 as the second number, 10 is greater than 5, right? So that's why line number 14 was also true. Because line number 14, the relational operator that we are using at line number 14 will check if the first operator is greater than or equal to the second operator. It can either be greater than the second operator or it can be equal to the second operator. In this case, in the case of 10 and 5, the first operator, that is 10, is greater than the second operator, that is 5. But if you replace this by 10, in this case both the operators are the same, right? So this num1 is greater than equal to num2 will be true in this case also. Is this clear to you? Difference between greater than and greater than equal to.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead. Okay, the next one is assignment operator. So you can go through this actually, the PPT if you want. It just basically gives you the same idea. So we have greater than, where which will be true if the left operand is greater than the right one. So I'll just give you some time to go through the slide. Let me know when we should move ahead. If you're done with reading the slide, we can move ahead.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Okay, so the next is assignment operator. Let's go back and see. Okay. So so this I as I mentioned in the earlier this code, right? Like this equal to sign is basically assigning a value to a variable, right? So basically this most basic assignment operator is equal to sign because it is assigning the value to a variable. Okay, now think of a use case wherein I want to add 1 to this variable, but I want to store it back into this variable only. Like I want to add 1 to this 2, but I want to save that value, whatever is the resulting value, I want to store it in the same variable. So here you can see it like line number 3. This is what I want to do. I want to add 1 to this init num variable, but I want to store the result into init num only. The same variable only I want to store the result in. Okay, so this line number 3 is one way of doing it. Okay, you can go like init num is equal to init num plus 1, or you can say init num plus is equal to 1. Okay, it's the same thing. So what plus is equal to means is plus is equal to this line number 5 plus is equal to 1. This will mean init num is equal to init num plus 1. Okay, so line number 3 and line number 5 will give you the same output basically. Is this clear to you all? Why is this? So you had an init num as a variable
Can you
in which,
explain again this init num?
yeah,
Ma'am,
yeah.
can you explain this init num?
Yeah, I'm explaining. So you had init num as a variable in which you put 2 as a value. Okay. So you used is equal
Why?
to, yeah, go ahead. What?
Why you had taken I and IT?
You can give any name to a variable as we discussed, right? You can give this variable. This is just a variable. You can give it any name. You can give it val also. We were using val variable name in the previous code, right? So you can give any name to the variable. So you can use, okay, for simplicity, I'll just use val over here. So now I have assigned this val is equal to 2. I have assigned the value of 2 to this val variable, right? Now what I want to do is I want the result to be put into val variable only, but I want to take whatever the value is inside the val variable and add 1 to it. So, I mean, basically, I want to do val plus 1. This is what I want to do. I want to do val plus 1, but I want to store it again into val variable only. Is this clear what I did on line number 2? I just use the current value in val. So think of val as a box, okay? Val is a box. So there's a box for every variable you declare in your code, and that box has a name on it. So in your box, val is the name of that variable. So val
Your
is the
voice
name on that.
is breaking.
Sorry?
Your voice is breaking.
Okay. Is it clear now?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay, let
Priya,
me.
actually, it sounds clear to me. There may be a network issue at their end.
Okay, okay. Maybe try
Yeah.
rejoining again if you are facing any issues with the voice.
Now it is clear.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, so as we were seeing, see this val is equal to 2 is my initial variable. Okay, now I want to add 1 to whatever is present inside val. So think of val as a box. Okay, every variable that you declare in your code is a box. The box has a name and there is a value present inside the box. So now when I declared val is equal to 2, one box was assigned to my variable whose name is val, and the value 2 was present, the value 2 is present inside that box. Okay, now what I want to do is whatever value is present inside this box, right, I want to add 1 to that value and put it into the box only. the same box. So I want to add 1 to whatever value is currently present inside val variable, and I want to store it inside val variable only again. So when we did that addition thing, right, what we used to do, we used to take num1 is equal to 10. We used to take num2 is equal to 15. We used to add it and save it in a variable add, right? This is what we used to do. Now what if my num2 is 1, num1 is 10, and I want to add both of these numbers, but I want to store the variable result in num1 itself. Okay, that is what I am doing here exactly. Val1, whatever value I have in 1, or I'll just remove this num2, and instead of this I'll just use 1 here. So I'm adding 1 to whatever is present inside num1 variable, and I'm putting that result inside num1 variable itself. Is this clear to all of you?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. So one way of doing this would be as in line number 2, wherein you say val is equal to val plus 1, or what you can do is you can just write val plus is equal to 1. It will be the same thing. Val. Okay, so this line number 2 and line number 4 are the same thing. Line number 4 is the shortened version of line number 2. So this will help you, like if you, it will save your time basically. Instead of writing val is equal to val plus 1 everywhere, you can directly write val plus is equal to 1. And same thing if you want to subtract 1 from the value of val and assign the a result inside val only, then you can do val minus is equal to 1. Similarly for multiplication, val into is equal to 1. Similarly for division, val divided by is equal to 2 or 1, whatever number is. And val modulus is equal to 3. Which this is again, it means if I had my val is equal to 10. Okay, and if I was going to write remainder is equal to val mod 3, then what would have been the answer? Can anyone tell me what would be the answer stored in rem? What is val mod 3?
Sorry, repeat it again.
1.
1, right.
1.
Yeah, right, 1. So if I want to store this val mod 3 into val only again, then I'll use line number 22 for that. It's a shortcut basically. Val mod is equal to 3. So it will perform the operation, whatever you're saying, like val mod 3, it will perform and it will store the value in val itself, in that val variable only. So is this clear to all of you?
Ma'am, can you repeat it again because your voice is breaking?
Yeah, okay. Just a minute. I'll repeat it again. I think one is extra. Okay. Okay. So I'll start from again. So whenever we are like assigning a value to a variable, we use equal to sign. So that is one of the assignment operators. Equal to is one of the assignment operators. Now, if I want to add two values, okay, and put it inside the initial value only. Like in case of addition, if I have num1 is equal to 10, num2 is equal to 15, and I want to add these two values, then this is what we have been doing till now, num1 plus num2. But if I want to store this num1 plus num2 inside num1 itself, inside the num1 value itself, num1 variable itself, then I'll write num1 is equal to num1 plus num2, right? So this is one way of putting it. This is one way of saying you add whatever value is present inside num1 variable to the value present inside num2 variable, and whatever result you are getting, you put that result inside the num1 variable only. Okay, and a simplified version of this would be num1 plus is equal to num2. Okay, so line number 7 and line number 8 are the same thing, only line number 8 is the shortened version of line number 7. So can anyone now tell me, whoever has understood, what does line number 7 do?
It is equals to num1 equals to num1 plus num2 is assigning the values in a box.
Okay, so what it is doing is, whatever it is basically adding whatever value is present inside num1 variable to the value present inside num2 variable. Okay, now it has to store this value somewhere, right? So it is storing it again into num1 variable only. Okay, if you can see line number 6, on line number 6 you're taking the value of num1 variable, adding it to num2 variable, and you are storing this value into the add variable, right? But in line number 7 you are taking value of num1 variable, adding it to the value of num2 variable, and putting the result in num1 variable itself. You're not taking another variable called add, you're putting it inside the same variable that you already have. Num1 is what you already have, right? So you're just taking this addition value and you're putting it inside the num1 variable only. So a simpler way of doing that is this assignment operator plus is equal to. Okay, so similarly you can do a minus is equal to also, you can do into is equal to, divided by is equal to, and mod is equal to. So let's see what is the next topic. I think okay, now we can go to logical operators. If assignment operators is clear for everyone, or you still have doubts in that. So here you can see on the right hand side, right, they have given a is equal to a plus b. Now a is equal to a plus b, how will you write it in terms of assignment operator? An easier way to write it would be a plus is equal to b. Similarly here, a is equal to a minus b, if you want to write, then you will write it as a minus is equal to b. So you can read it over here. So you can see this plus is equal to is add and. It's called add and. Plus is equal to, because it is adding, right? Adding and. Add right side operand with left side operand and then assign to the left operand. Similarly for all the other operators. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Everyone has
Ma'am,
understood?
can you explain again?
Assignment
Can
operator.
you explain again, operator?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just get rid of all.
How many topics are you going to cover in remaining time?
Let's see how much ever we can cover. There's one more operator section that has to be done, and then we can move on to strings. I guess we can see what strings are.
Okay.
Okay. Now see, like if I have a as a variable, which is a is equal to 1, and then I have b as a variable, b is equal to 2, and if I want to add them, okay, so okay, can anyone tell me how will you add these two variables? Add and put them in a variable. You basically have to add a plus b and put it into some another variable, right? So can anyone tell me what is the next line that I have to write?
Add is equal to a plus b.
Okay, you can put add or you can put c, anything you want. You can put add is equal to a plus b, right? Now this see, as I said that you can put this into add or c, any variable you can give it as name. But what if I want to put it in a variable only? Like what if I want to put it in this first operand only, in a operand only? I don't require this a anymore. Okay, I
A plus, A plus.
yeah, right. So you make it as a is equal to a plus b, right? Then in Python you just have a simpler way of doing it. That is, you don't have to write.
Compulsory.
Yeah, any
Ma'am,
question?
that is very compulsory to put A
is equal A plus is equal to B.
Yeah, right,
as a
right.
A is equal to A plus B.
Yeah, right,
Hello?
right. Yeah, yeah. We can hear you. Your voice was getting
Ma'am,
like
you can hear me?
yeah, yeah. We can hear you. Yeah, tell me.
I told you that there is any compulsory to put a because you written a is equal to A plus B.
Hmm. So you
So
can't require
A
it.
is
Like
written
okay, okay.
in front. You written A is compulsory. Yeah, exact value.
Can you repeat your question again? I wasn't getting you properly.
You written A in front, ma'am. You written A is equal to A plus B.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you're asking
So
if this a is equal to a plus b is like compulsory? Is it if it has to be put inside a only?
yeah,
Okay, see, if you want to put it in some other variable, if you want to put it in C or if you want to put it in add, then there is no shortcut for it. You have to use A plus B only. A plus B. Okay, the shortcut only exists if you want to put it inside A, if you want to put the value inside A. This A plus is equal to B will only be useful if you want this A plus B value to be stored inside A variable only. You can use any variable. You can put a plus b inside any variable. You can put it inside c, you can put it inside add, anything you can put it in, but the shortcut will only work. This a plus is equal to b will only work when you want to when you want your answer to be put inside the like the a variable, the first operand only. So here in this case, A is the first operand and B is the second operand, right? So when you want to perform an operation and put the value, whatever value you get out of that operation into the first operand, only in that case you can use this shortcut. I hope it's clear.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, let's go on to logical operators. Okay. Okay. So now we had discussed about true and false values, right? True and false Boolean values, right? Now, I think I'm not sure how many of you are aware of logic gates, like this A and B, A or B, and not A. So, okay, I'll just give you a brief overview. So, what these three operators will do is basically it will evaluate the statements. Okay. So now it will initially this true and false for evaluating any equation to true and false, we were using relational operators, right? We were using greater than equal to, less than equal to, right? So now if I want to evaluate two boolean operators, in that case I will use logical operator. Okay, so as in all in relational operators or in arithmetic operators you have integers as operands, in logical operators you will have booleans as operands. The two operands that you will use to to apply logical operators will be boolean values. So here you can see val1 is true and val2 is true, right? So here in this case, if I use an AND operator, there are three logical operators basically: AND, OR, and NOT. Okay, what NOT will do is, NOT is the simplest one. NOT val1 means, now as you know, a boolean operator only has two values, right? Every Boolean operand will only have two values, true and false. Either it can be true or it can be false. So when you apply a not before the Boolean variable, it will convert the value, which means if my val1 variable was true, my line number 7, that is not val1, will give a value of false. Is this clear? Not operator is clear. Not operator will only convert the value. Like, see, either you can have a true value or you can have a false value, right? So if you have a true value and you use a not this operator to that true value, see, first thing is Boolean can only be true or false. Second thing is logical operators will only work on Boolean operands. Okay. For in case of arithmetic operators, how we use either integer operators or integer operands or float operands, right? Similarly, in case of logical operators, you will only use Boolean operands. Okay, so now if I'm using not in front of a Boolean operator, like val1 in this case, it will just convert the value. That is val1, which was true, not val1 would be false. If val1 is false, then what should be not val1? Anyone?
False.
No, it should be reverse of it.
True.
Yeah, it should be true. Okay, so that is simplest. That is the simplest you can say logical operator. When you use not, it's a single operand. Like this not operator does not require two operands. It just uses a single operand. Okay, and or and operators use two operands. Okay, so what and will do is and will give you a true value, like the answer for this now, as you can see, so we saw, right, the when we evaluate a relational function, when we evaluate a relational operator, we get a value of Boolean, right? 10 is greater than 3 gave me a Boolean value, true, right? So similarly, when you evaluate a logical operator, you will get a Boolean value only. So in this case, in not case, in line number 9, you got the value as true in this case because val1 was false. So your equation, this statement, not val1, got evaluated into a Boolean. Similarly, and or operators will also get evaluated into Booleans only. That means line number 5 and line number 7 will have output as a Boolean only, either true or either false. We'll see what all would how to determine the values, but right now and or and not, all the three of them, all the logical operators will give you a Boolean output only. So and operator, right? So and operator will give you a true value only when both the operators are true. Which means if val1 is true and val2 is also true, only then you will get and res as true, or else and res would be false. Okay. So in this case, what do you think would be the value of and res?
False.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Correct. Great. That is because val1 is false, right? What I said, if you're using and operator with two Boolean operators and operator with two Boolean operands, then if the two Boolean operands are true, only in that case you will get the answer to be true, or else the answer would be false. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Similarly, in OR case, in OR, you will get a value of true if either of the two operands are true. That is, either if val1 is true or val2 is true, then you will get answer to be true. If both of them are false, then you will get the answer as false. Okay, so in this case, what would be the answer for OR is?
True. True. True.
True, right? Yeah. Yeah. So is this clear to all of you? There are only three logical operators, and, or, and not.
Ma'am, can you explain and or again?
Okay. So and or are also logical operators which will work on two Boolean values, two Boolean operands they will be working on, right? You will have to pass it two Boolean operands for it to give you a value. Okay, and the value that you will get, the output that you will get by using and or operators will also be a Boolean value only. So this for line number 5 and line number 7 will give you a Boolean output only. Now, how to evaluate that Boolean output? Whenever you're using AND operator, your answer would be true only if both the operands are true. That is, only if val1 and val2, both of these operands are true, then your answer would be true, or else your answer would be false. Okay, is this clear?
I think and or is same.
And an or is not same, because see, in and you need both val1 and val2 to be true, so as to get an answer of true. If val1 is true and val2 is false, then you will get an answer of false, right? But in case of or, you will get an answer of true if either of the two operands are true. Even if one of those two, val1 or val2 operators are true, right, you will get an answer of true. So I think I can clear it out a little bit using this table. So here you can see, right? If so, A and B are my two operands. Sorry, A and B are my two operands, and since I have three operators and or and not. Okay. Now, if both the operands are false, then if I try to AND them, I'll get an answer of false. Why? Because AND will only be true in case both the operands are true. This last line you can see, right? Both the operands are true, only in that case AND is true. In all the other cases, AND is false. In case of OR, you will get a true value if at least one of the two operands is true. Like in all the three cases, I think the first case wherein both the operands is false, that is the only case where OR becomes false. All the other three operands, right? At least if you have at least one of the operands that is true, either one of the operands or both the two operands is true, then you will get an answer of true.
Okay, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you got it right. Great. Fine. So this was about logical operators. Any questions still here? So I think this is just the like kind of diagram for operators, logical operators. It's nothing. Okay. So any questions still here?
No.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So let's go and let's see what all is. Okay. Fine. So I think like let's not start with string in this session, because like we'll have to go a little bit inside it, and maybe we can start it in this next session. All I can tell right now is if you're trying to initialize a variable with a string, right? So this is how you do it. Okay. I can either write this is a string. So this is basically a sentence, right? An English sentence, and it's called a string in Python. This variable is called a string. So so just as we have various data types, right? We can assign an integer and a float or a boolean. Similarly, this string is another data type, and which means anything that you put inside this double quotes. Okay, if you put this inside the double quotes, if you put 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 inside a double quotes, even this will become a string. This is not a integer, this will become a string because it is present inside a double quote. So anything that you put inside a double quote, which is a valid character, that will become a string. Okay, so a string is nothing but an English, you can think of it as an English statement in Python. Okay, so you have characters, and basically a character is nothing but one character, one alphabet, or one number. So if I say ch is equal to s, which means cs is a character. Okay, and if I say s is equal to this is a string, then this is a string. So this is a string, line number 2 is a string, and line number 4 is a character. Okay, if there's just one character, if there's just one alphabet or one number present inside a single quote, so see, for character we are using a single quote, and for string we are using a double quote. Right, so this is the difference. And a string is made up of characters. So as you can see, this is made up of 1 2 3 4. Even space is a character. So if I say character ch is equal to this space, then even this becomes a valid character in Python. Okay, so yeah, so this is
Now,
the
what is the result of this?
you can, okay, just a second, you can just print it, print s, and it will give you, this is a string. If you want to see type s,
No, space one.
I, just a second, see, yeah, it will be a space, nothing else. Space is also a valid character. So as I was saying, right, a string is made up of several characters. So in this case, like you can count the number of characters in the string. So in this case, in S, right, there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 characters. Okay, you have to count space also, you have to count the dot also at the end. So whatever gets inside the double quotes will be a part of the string. So you can check the length of a string using len function. You can just pass s into the length of the string and you will get the 17 as the length. So
What unit will be used here?
sorry, repeat your question again.
What will the unit for length is
It would
used?
be it is counting basically. It does not have any unit as such. Like if you count yourself the number of characters present inside this s string, right, present inside double quotes, that would be 17. Okay, so it is counting the number of characters that are present inside the string. It does not have any unit as such. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give you a basic overview of what a string and a character is. We'll start with strings and characters properly in the next session only. And see. So I think I can just go through the assignment questions. I have some assignment questions for you guys for this week. So it's mostly things that we have done in the class itself. Let me just go through it once. Okay, so the first one is to perform the arithmetic, relational, and logical operators. So this is again whatever we have done in the class, whatever codes have been shown to you in the class, the same thing you will have to try to do it on your own. And the second one, like if anyone has any questions, you can ask me. You can do it normally, like you can assign the numbers by yourself only. No need of taking input from the user or anything. You can just directly take two numbers, assign some value to those two numbers, and then perform the arithmetic, relational, and logical operators. And then second one is, okay, so second one is kind of a revision of global and local variables. So what you have to do is you have to take three operations. So for example, if I'm taking addition, subtraction, and multiplication, so I am going to write three functions for these three operators. So one function would be for addition, second would be for subtraction, third would be for multiplication. Okay, but the two so all these three functions will be operated on the two global variable, which means you will have to take two global variable, you will have to take the input from the user into these two global variables and then use these global variables to perform the function. Okay, so if you have num1 and num2 as your global variable, you will take the input from the user and you will have three functions. If you're taking whichever three operations you want to take, you can do it, whichever three arithmetic operations you want, and like inside that function you will perform whatever operation is required. So if you're taking addition operation, so this num1 and num2 global variable that you have, right, you will add them and you will print the output inside your function only. So that is what is expected of you. And the third one is also simple. This is what we have seen in the class. You will have to take the input from the user as a float, as a decimal input, and then add them. Yeah. Any questions?
Ma'am, can you explain the second one once again?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just show it to you. Yes. Okay. So now you have num1 and num2 as your two variables, inputs from the user. So yeah, whatever you want to prompt, num2 would be your second variable. So both these are global variables, right? Input. Okay, then you will have to choose three operations. So if I say add operation, you will have to write function for those three operations. So print, or maybe assign it into a variable, into a local variable. So now add would be my local variable, right? Num1 plus num2 and print the output. So this is just for one. You will have to write three of whatever operations that you want to choose out of the arithmetic operations. You will have to write three functions for your three operations. Is this clear?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Doesn't. Okay, still we have some time, so I think I'll just tell you one more concept. Okay. Okay. So, as we had seen before, right? Like there is a global variable and there is a local variable. So now in case, okay, just a second. I'll just comment out this code. Okay. So now here you can see there is one global variable, which is IM in the Python class, right? And I have written one function called make mode happy. And inside this, there is one local variable named s is equal to I am very happy today. Now, if I call this make mode happy function, what should be the s? What should be the string displayed? What should be the value displayed in this case if I call make mode happy function? Any guesses?
I am very happy today.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So I am very happy today would be called. So what do you guys think? Like when I'm changing this string, right? When I declared s is equal to I am very happy today, does it have any effect on this I am in the Python class variable?
Because you write a hash in the starting of the line.
Um, okay, see, in this case, see, there is this s is equal to I am in the Python class is a global variable, right? But this s is equal to I am very happy today is a local variable. So basically, what I want to say is, even if there is a variable with the same name, in the like there's a global variable with the same name as your local variable, then in the function that local variable will only be accessed. So in this case, right, there is two variables with s name, right? One is the global variable and one is the local variable. So when you call this make mode happy function and it prints this s variable, right? This s is a local variable. It is not the global variable. Okay. So even though their name is the same, they both are different variables. This is what I'm trying to say. Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, any questions in this? See this s, which is s is equal to I am in the Python class, the s that is a global variable, and the s that is present inside the function, which is a local variable, are two different variables. They are not the same even though their name is the same. Okay, and when I type print s, right, so whichever is my local variable, only that will be reflected. The global variable will not be reflected. In case this line was not there, in case line number 5 was not there, in this case it would have taken the global variable. Okay, but since we have one more definition of s variable inside the function, so it will take this I am very happy today variable only. It will not take the local the global variable. So let me just try to print it and see. So here I'm just calling make mood happy function. So see, it is printing I am very happy today. But if this s variable was not present, if you had only one s variable, which was a global variable, in this case, it would have taken I am in the Python classes value. S would have taken I am in the Python classes value. Is this clear?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, and this definition, right, this redefinition of s, or say this local variable s, has nothing to do with the global variable. So if I just call print s outside of the function, I should still be able to get I am in the Python class only, because this local variable cannot be accessed from outside, right? So when I'm saying print s, I am referring to the global variable only. I'm not referring to local variable. This local variable, we can only see the answer if we call the make mood happy function, or else this if I'm typing it outside of the function, if I'm directly typing print s, that will be referring to my global variable, that won't be referring to the local variable. So okay, so can anyone tell me what is this line number 13 going to print?
I'm very happy today.
I'm very happy today.
No, it won't. Like, that's what we talked, right? So see, if I have a function and I am declaring a variable inside that function, that is a local variable. You cannot access it.
I am in Python class.
Yeah, that would be the answer. So even though the name is the same, right? Even though the variable inside the function has the same name as the variable outside the function, but they both are different variables. One of them is global and one of them is local variable. So they will not be addressing to the same space. They will not be addressing to the same box. Okay, we discussed, right? Every variable in the memory can be thought of as having a box. So similarly, this s variable which is declared outside the function will be in a different box, and the s variable that is defined inside the function will be in a different box. So when we are typing, when we type this print this s variable inside the function, it takes the value of the s variable which is present inside the function. But when we call print s from outside the function, from generally it has nothing to do with this make mood happy function, right? So in this case, it is going to take the global variable, not the local variable. Is this even a
Ma'am,
little clear?
ma'am, it
Yeah.
means that print s actually refers to I am in the Python class, and that hashtag one represents the I am very happy today print s. That
Which one do you think will print I am very happy today? This third one?
no,
No.
15.
No. Even this line will print the global variable only. See, this has nothing
Okay.
to do with, yeah. See, this s, right? This I am very happy today is only present inside the function. So whenever you're calling s from outside the function, this call will go to the global variable only. It will not go to the local variable. So like that's
Local
what.
variable cannot print outside the function.
Yeah, right. So whenever you're declaring a variable inside a function, you cannot print it outside the function, right? This is what we saw, right? That's why it's called a local variable. So this local variable s can only be accessed from inside make mode happy function. If you are saying print s outside of the function, then the s will only refer to global variable. It will not refer to this local variable. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay. So I guess then I think we are done for the day. Any questions in today's session you can ask right now. We still have 6 minutes to go.
No, ma'am.
Any questions about the assignment that she has given for homework?
No, but you can send the homework on the WhatsApp group.
Madhyas, Neelam, are you guys there on the call? Um,
Yes, I am in the call.
yeah. So, along with the video of this, along with the recording, can you please share the questions also? It is in the same folder in Drive.
Okay, we will share after the class. Okay.
Please. Okay.
Okay.
So, if no more doubts, we can close the session for today. Guys, please let us know if anyone has any doubts on anything which is taught today. I guess it's all good. Yeah. Madhyas, I guess we can close the session then, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so